video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we're going to be focusing on using this OceanScapes and its Circlescapes shaker dies. I also used some wispy clouds, that wave cover plate. I wasn't sure about the sentiment, so I pulled out a couple of different ones, and then the seashells. So a lot of die cutting going on. First things first, just going to get all my pieces parts kind of cut out here so that I know what I'm working with. You can do this with colored cardstock. I chose to just cut all of mine out of white and then add my color with my distress inks. You can use any inks that you have. This, for me, is a way for me to save money. Colored cardstock is expensive, and because I already own so many inks, it's just an easy way for me to kind of cut back on my costs and how much that I have in my craft room. Plus, it gives me a lot more control over the colors. In this particular one, I am making a shaker card, so I am going to be cutting a piece of vellum out. That's kind of where the Circlescape shaker frames come in. It gives you a base piece to build on in various sizes, and then it also gives you frame pieces so that you can cut them out and they will have a frame that matches perfectly. I used both pieces. I used the base as well as a frame. And then I'm going to use this cover plate. There's been a ton of people on the Honeybee channel who have used this particular die beautifully, and almost all of us have paired it with this wave background, this cover plate, because it's just like, it's so perfect to add texture without any bulk. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting out all these pieces. Now, full disclosure before we get too far into the video, my allergies are totally acting up today. They are terrible. I will try to keep the sniffling to a minimum, but no promises. So if that's going to bother you, you may want to mute the video now before it gets too out of control, because I can't control it. I've taken the medicines and the medicines do not make it stop, and that just happens to me pretty often, unfortunately. So anyway, one thing to note with the die cutting, when I die cut my acetate, did I say vellum earlier? I might have. I'm using acetate, guys. It's clear. When I die cut my acetate, I did put a piece of cardstock underneath it and on top of it, just like a scrap piece, to make sure that I wasn't going to get any unwanted impressions in the actual acetate. So now that everything is cut out, we're going to move to the distress inking portion. This comes out, like the sun rays come out in one piece, so they're not individual. And then they have these fun little like dotted details in them. So I just picked some yellows. I ended up using mustard seed, fossilized amber, and carved pumpkin. You don't have to go this dark. You could do a squeezed lemonade with fossilized amber as being your darkest color. But I wanted just a little bit of contrast between that and like the portion that is the actual sun and not just the rays. I wanted there to be a little bit of contrast in between those colors, and that's why I decided to go a smidge darker. But you can do whatever works for you, a lighter yellow, or, make those, a sunset or a sunrise would be super pretty. Doing blue in the background and then just the sun would also be really pretty. A lot of options with this. So once that's done, I'm going to set that aside, and you want to be very careful if you choose to do it this way with the distress inks, that you're cleaning up after each color. So like if I had left my yellow down there, I'd have green clouds right now because I'm using blue. Speaking of the clouds, I'm only adding minimal shading just on the bottom to give them a little bit of color with Salty Ocean. I am leaving the top portions of them white. This isn't something that you have to do, but because I was going to be layering my clouds on top of each other, I wanted there to be a little bit of contrast when one laid on top of the other one. For the ocean, I actually am going to be using for the shaker bits, and I'll show you a little bit later, I used the Shipwrecked Sequin Mix and the Tide Pool Treasure Blend. So there's some little seashells, there's some pearls and some sequin pieces, and so I use those. So that's how I picked the colors for my water. I was trying to match the colors that came in these two embellishment packs that I knew I was going to be using. So with each color, I started with my lightest color and then I added just a little bit of shading to the underneath with the next darkest color. So total, I used Salvaged Patina, Peacock Feathers, Mermaid Lagoon, Uncharted Mariner, and then Chipped Sapphire. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Kelly, all of those are blue-green except for the Chipped Sapphire. That's a purple blue. And you know what? You would be right. It is a purple blue. But by going back over it, and you'll see that when we get to that particular piece, it's my darkest piece. By going back over it with the Mermaid Lagoon, it adds a little bit more green to it. So I still get the intensity of the darker color, but the overlying color it does have a little bit more green, and that's how I was able to use it. Same thing with the shading. The Uncharted Mariner has a little bit more green in it. So when I was using the Chipped Sapphire, that was a struggle, y'all. Oh my goodness gracious, that was a struggle. And you know what? Most people would be professional enough to edit it out, and I am not. It's going to stay. I'm going to leave it in here. Because real people mispronounce things, and I am very real, especially when it comes to the mispronunciation of things. So for the frame, what I decided to do, I kind of went back and forth. I thought about maybe doing a brown or a solid black, but what I ended up doing is actually coloring it with my ink blending so that it kind of matched the circle in which it was going to surround. So it's almost like a portion of the circle is popped up when they lay on top of each other. And I was not exact with this. I basically just guesstimated how far up the blue should go. I did bring it up a hair too high, but ultimately I don't think it's too terrible when the whole card is put together. And again, making sure that I'm cleaning up my work surface, especially before I switch to these yellows. I'm going to wipe it up with a baby wipe. I'm going to go back over it with a dry cloth. I don't want any of this blue to be left behind to ruin my bright, yellowy, sunshiny day. I don't want a green sunshiny day. So then once that's done, I am going to start with this backer piece, start kind of building my pieces. Don't mind me. I should be opening a new glue bottle, but again, I am cheap. Let's return back to this truth that we know. I am cheap. And so I'm trying to get every little bit out of my honeybee glue before I open the next one that I have. So here I'm just going to use my tweezers to kind of help layer these as I'm putting them down. The backer piece that I'm using is a little bit smaller than the actual scene, but it doesn't matter because I'm only using it to help hold all my pieces parts together. You're not even going to see it. It's going to be completely covered up. So with that said, there'll be some Copic coloring later on. We'll kind of touch on that, but several of you have asked about how Molly is doing. So this week has been a week, y'all. It has been like this week has just punched us in the face. That's what kind of week it's been. And it's not so much that it's like, oh my gosh, it's so terrible, this emergency situation where things need to be handled. No, this is just our life. This is just our life right now. And so I don't know really how to tell one story without telling the other. So Molly had her surgery on Monday. When at the time that I gave you guys that update, I had just found out that the doctor had called me that she had torn her ACL and her meniscus, that the surgery was successful. So my mom comes over to hang out with the kids because in order to put Molly in the car, I have to take out Peanut's car seat. So they could not travel with us. So Eric and I went out there, we waited in the waiting room, and they, like, for payment, they told us it was going to be like a sliding scale, X to X. And so the minimum amount that it will be, you have to pay before their surgery is done, and then to pick them up, you pay anything over. I think it was like $26 over what we originally thought, that, like the minimum. So not too bad. I mean, the whole thing was very expensive, very, very expensive, but the overage was not much. So we get her, she comes hobbling out, God love her. I had bought one of those inflatable cones. Well, it's an inflatable like pillow that goes around their neck so she doesn't have to wear the cone. Molly doesn't like the cone. Um, and so we put that on her. We're able to get her into the car with the help of this little lift thing that I had bought. I think told you guys. Back to the card real quick. So here, I'm going to go ahead and adhere the frame to the acetate. I have in the past and it does work, but I'm not a huge fan of using liquid glue on acetate just because it is more of a slick surface. So it takes longer to dry and my parts kind of are at risk for sliding around. So if I can use a dry adhesive, I usually do. The trick that I found to getting this adhered, where everything lined up, was putting the acetate down flat and then starting with one edge completely lined up and then working my way around. So I would start with one edge lined up and then turn it and then just make sure I kept lining up my edge. And eventually I got to the end and everything was lined up the way that it was supposed to. When I tried just sticking it on there, I wasn't having very good luck. So now moving on to the stamping and coloring portion. I knew that I was going to use my clouds on the outside, part of them on the outside of my shaker. And so I wanted there to be something on the bottom that was also very beachy, but this isn't like a realistic scene. You know what I'm saying? That's not the look I'm going for. So I decided I was going to put some seashells at the bottom. So I've stamped those out and then I'm going to copic color them. I colored them exactly the same. They're not supposed to be the star of the show. They're supposed to be the supporting actors. So I did color them the way I normally would, but I'm not too worried about making them the most interesting thing to look at. For the sunshine rays, I did go in and just every other ray add a little bit more shading, just to kind of break up the look of it. This is totally not necessary, and especially in a shaker, like if you're giving this to like a kid in your life, or you know what I mean, they're going to be too involved in the interactive portion of it, this shaker, to really pay attention to your coloring in the background. But it was just something that I wanted to kind of show as an option, that if you aren't loving what's going on in the background, or if you're looking to maybe highlight that part, this is a way that you can do that, is just by adding a little bit of marker. And then we're going to move on to the coloring. I chose warm grays for this. And honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about how the shells came out. I think on their own, they're really pretty. You guys know in my previous card when I used these, I talked about how much I loved them and how well done they were. Nothing's changed. Still love them. I think they're beautiful seashells. I think they're beautifully drawn. And that's why I gravitated toward them and wanted to use them again. But I'm not sure that my color palette that I chose really matched the color palette of my card. I think at the end of the day, it works okay because the sunshine and the water is very bright and draws your eye as the focal point, and then these are more muted and, you know, just kind of, like I said, supporting actors of the card. But I wish I would have found a way to make them a little bit brighter so everything looked a bit more cohesive. But sometimes you just have to accept that, you know, you tried it, it maybe wasn't what you loved, and next time, you know, you do it a little bit different. I don't hate it by any means. So anyway, so we get her in the car, we bring her home. They told us we'd have to give her medicine. She has 4 pills she has to take. 2 of them are antibiotics, 1 of them is an anti-inflammatory, and 1 of them is a pain pill. They tell us when we get her home that we're going to have to give her pills. The antibiotics she has to take with food. And I'm like, what if she won't eat? And the poor vet tech was like, well, I don't know. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if you just have, as a person, like, you just have this massive surgery, you're all groggy, you know, from being knocked out, everything else, are you going to wake up and be like, I want to eat? So they told me that I could give it to her with, like, salami or cheese or something, and that would be of enough of a quote-unquote snack for that to be considered given with food. So that's what I ended up doing. I offered her food. She wasn't interested in it. They told us that she might be it might take her a while to go to the bathroom, not so much the peeing, but the pooping, because of the anesthesia. She didn't have any issue with that. She did not want to go down the ramp. Oh my goodness gracious, y'all. She did not want to go down the ramp. So she was afraid of it, I think. She didn't understand. And so we have stairs that go off our back deck. Well, she can't do stairs, so we got this wheelchair ramp. But we were out there probably 20 minutes trying to coax her down the ramp. She wouldn't do it. And finally, we ended up just having to kind of like carry her down it, like using the lift assist, and then letting her walk on her front paws. It was almost like forcing her to do it, which I felt bad, but like she had to get down there to go to the bathroom and she couldn't do the stairs without hurting herself. So I am happy to report now, almost, today is Saturday, so we're 6 days out of surgery. She will do the ramp now with no issues. She's no longer scared of it. Molly also doesn't like to be crated. My dog has a lot of anxiety. I told you guys, like Eric always jokes, she's definitely my dog because I have anxiety. She has anxiety. We're a match made in heaven. And so Molly doesn't like to be crated. I got Molly when she was 4 months old. She was a rescue off literally the streets. And so I don't know what happened to her in her life before she was 9. But she has never really been crated. She was crated for a very short period of time when I first got her because she was still potty training. But Molly got the hang of that pretty quickly. And so she hasn't been crated in probably 10 years, like a decade. I never have to worry about her being out and about in the house. I've never had any issues with her. Like, she doesn't get into anything. She doesn't chew anything. She's a wonderful dog. So she doesn't like to be crated. So the first night, she didn't really give me any kind of hard time about it because she was so out of it, because of, you know, the anesthesia and all that stuff. So, but then the next night, I had put her in her crate. I tried to give her a little bit of a break, like where I would just let her out of the crate and then I would sit in the floor with her and, you know, give her pets and stuff like that. So she wasn't just in the crate all day by herself. But unfortunately, my craft room, like my office, is upstairs and she can't do the stairs. She's allowed to do them one time a day if like she's going upstairs to go to bed for the night, but they really discourage her doing any sort of stairs. So I put her in the crate. I go upstairs to bed. I am literally upstairs for 15 minutes. This is the shortest. I mean, it was so fast. And I hear the metal of the crate. And I thought maybe she was just repositioning, getting a little bit more comfortable. You know, I got pillows in there. I got blankets in there. I got blankets in there that smell like us. Like, I didn't shortchange her. I gave her good blankies. And so I hear the crate moving around, and then I hear it and it's getting louder and it's getting louder. So I go back downstairs and this dog has straight destroyed this crate. It's a steel metal crate. She has completely bent the bar up. The door is just hanging there. It's still locked at the top, but that's the only thing keeping the door connecting to the other side. So like she wasn't completely out of the crate, but there's no way I could leave her in this crate either. So Eric's already in bed. The kids are in bed. Molly weighs 66 pounds, and she's got this bum leg. So I get the little lift thing. I approach the stairs. I have to try to convince her of what's going on. Let's go back to the card. So now all the coloring is done. I used the dies to cut those out, as well as the sentiment. Something to note on the sentiment. This is from the birthday wishes set. And it does have, this one says, this is the part I cut out. Today, if your heart is light and happy, then on the inside you would put, then my wish for you has come true. And so I thought that was really cute. And this would kind of be like a fun beachy birthday card, and I'm here for it. So anyway, now I'm just kind of laying everything out. This cloud I wanted to put on the inside of the shaker, but I didn't want it to hang out of my circle, so I'm just trimming it off. The frame will cover up the rough cut edge. And then I'm going to start building everything on top of the acetate before I even put it on the card, using mostly my dry adhesive, because like I said, I don't like the liquid on acetate. So anyway, she and I are now standing at the bottom of the stairs. I've got the little lift helper underneath her belly, but she's not having any of it. So I pretty pretty much I lift up her back end and then bend over and am picking up her front paws and setting them on a stair, and then picking up the other paw and setting them on a stair. By the time that we got, because like there's like 6 stairs and then a landing and then 6 stairs and then you're upstairs. So by the time we got to the last 3 stairs, I literally just picked her up over the 3 stairs. So I get her into the bedroom. I get her pillows and blankies. I make her a little spot next to my side of the bed, and she won't lay down. She's just pacing, crying, pacing. And I'm like, Molly, lay down. Molly, lay down. Molly, lay down. Molly, lay down. This is the whole situation. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe her issue is that she can't get comfortable with the inflatable pillow, like the cone replacement. So I'd seen on the internet where you could make your own like sleeve to protect their wound. And so pretty much it's a DIY. You just cut off the sleeve of an old long sleeve shirt, use the hem of that shirt that you cut off to create 2 straps, tie it around their waist, and then tie it to their collar. It covers up their leg so that they can't lick it. This isn't something that's like foolproof. If your dog's a heavy chewer or a heavy licker, it's not going to work. But I figured, okay, well, let me try this sleeve to see if that works, and I'll take off her cone. So I do that. As soon as the cone comes off, girlfriend is walking around trying to figure out a way to jump on this bed. Back to the card. So here, in order to create my shaker, I'm taking a tip from you all. This is something you told me to do. I did not think that it was going to work when I started, but turns out you were right. It totally works. So I cut a very thin piece of foam tape and just kind of worked the entire strip around my circle. It does kind of bunch up a little bit, but not enough to keep it from adhering to my next layer of foam or the cardstock itself. So I just worked around until I ran out of foam tape. I trimmed off the edge of that, and then I started again until I had 2 layers of foam. So anywho, she's pacing, trying to jump on the bed. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, you cannot jump on this bed, you crazy, crazy animal. So then the cone's got to go back on because I can't have her jumping up on the bed. And apparently the cone does not give her enough confidence to jump on the bed. Back to the card. So here I have the, this is the Ocean View, pearls. I think that's what they're called. No, Ocean Waves pearls. And I saw Jennifer McGuire do this trick and I thought it was brilliant. So basically what she does is she takes some of the pieces, parts from her sequins, whatever embellishments that she's using in her shaker, and she kind of glues them around the card so that there's always some bits kind of up at the top. And that is, it's an absolutely genius idea. And so, but because I already had these pearl stickers that match, I just decided to use those. Here I am putting in the Tide Pool Treasure, what is it? Treasure Blend. Yeah, see, I have to double check my pronunciation there. Just hear how awkward that was. In order to fill this, and I did pull out the bigger pieces. So eventually Molly did lay down and go to sleep. That was not the last of Molly's adventures this week, but it was the last of Molly's adventures that particular night. So I will regale you with the next round of adventures with Molly's torn ACL the next time we get together. So here I wanted to add some shimmer and I forgot to do it before I started doing my embellishments. So I just kind of scooted them all to one side so that I could add some shimmer to the sun as well as the tops of the waves. And then I also added it to the tops of the clouds. I'm going to scoot all of my embellishments back to the center, peel off this foam tape, and then put this bad boy in place to contain my shaker elements. You could totally do this where you use the die cut to cut a circle in your background and have your shaker be inset. But because I very rarely get to make shakers that are in actual shapes, I wanted it to kind of pop up from the card base and have this like dimension and just kind of be more fun. So there's the adding to the shimmer of the clouds. And at this point, then everything is put together and you can shake it about and have fun with it. There was one larger pearl that got away from me that I didn't see before I sealed it up. It's not a big deal. It still does shake around. The larger pearl, I mean, all of it shakes, but the larger pearl does move. You just got to like tap the side a little bit. But it matched the waves pretty well, so I was happy with the way that that looked, and the little seashells are fun along with the, pearls in the background. So super happy with the way that it came out. I think it's a fun card. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I genuinely appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.